And welcome back to OneClimate. Pleased to say that we've got Anna Collins here from Adopt a Negotiator, and we're going to be talking to her a little bit about the process of what's happening here at the Copenhagen Climate Conference, and also about her experience of tracking the UK delegation over the last 6 months is now, maybe a little bit more. So Anna, maybe a good place to start for our viewers would be for you to give a little update on the negotiations this morning, since I believe you're in the plenaries. So just as a broad overview, what happened this morning?
Yeah, this morning in UN terms was quite exciting. There's a few of us sat in the back of plenary from the tracker team, and it all went very UN-like for the first about an hour and a half. Lots of statements, not too much exciting going on. But then towards the end, Tuvalu intervened and said that they weren't happy with the way the process was going and they wanted to do it a different way. And then I think it was China intervened and said they were happy with the way the process was going and they wanted to do it this way. And then lots of countries jumped in to support either side. And so then the chair had to stop the meeting. She called all the group leaders and they all went and huddled in the corner while the meeting was suspended, and we were all left just sitting there. They huddled in the corner for about 20 minutes, and then she came back and told us that they had to suspend the meeting because they couldn't find consensus. So at the minute, quite a lot of things are suspended, there's not much agreements being made, and no one really knows where we're getting.
So from an outsider's perspective, I know I can speak for Jeff and myself, we haven't been going into all of these meetings for the last 6 months, and I imagine I can say the same for almost all of our viewers. It seeseems quite surreal to imagine kind of all these head negotiators from around the world huddling in the corner of a room. Is that kind of typical of the process you've been witnessing?
Yeah, it's because the process has to work on consensus. There's lots of strange things that happen. And everything's done in a very UN fashion. So, someone will say, ooh, somebody was shouting at someone else, but they won't actually have been shouting. But, when you've been following for quite a long time, you can feel what's not normal for the UN, whilst other people might not feel that. But there's some things that people say, or the way they say it, that's definitely not normal, and that's when it gets exciting, if you know what's going on.
Okay, it's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the Adopt a Negotiator initiative. You said you've been following the UN negotiations since Bonn now. You've been going to each one. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into it and what the initiative hopes to achieve?
Yeah. So I came to Adopt a Negotiator through the youth climate movement. There's a huge international youth climate movement all over the world. It's amazing. There's so many young people. And Adopt a Negotiator were putting this project together, and they needed 13 young people from 13 different countries. So they used the networks that were already there. They brought us together for the first time in June in Germany, in Bonn, for the UN negotiations there. We've been following in Bonn, in Germany, in Barcelona, in Bangkok, and now we're in Copenhagen. We meet up, we follow the negotiations, we meet with our negotiators, we blog, we try and tell people what's going on, and we're just really trying to make the process two-way, because for a long time, people did not understand this process. If you try and follow it through the UNFCCC website, you're not going to be able to understand it. So we try and put it in terms people can understand in a way they can understand it. And we also really try and make it an emotional process, to explain to people the emotions that come with being here, what it's like to be a human being in such a soulless process that's very crazy, and so just to really make people feel involved in the process.
It's interesting that you talk about trying to convey emotions and the importance of that. I read one of your blog posts, I think it was called Make Art Not Policy, talking about the kind of centres that these conferences are held in, and maybe you'd just like to kind of share your experiences of that with our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time in UN conference centres over the last 6 months, and they're just really grey places. They're quite often in these kind of buildings which are huge convention centres where they move the walls depending on the meeting. And when they move the walls, they're always grey, and when they move the carpet, it's always grey, and it's always concrete. And I think these rooms where we're deciding the fate of the world, and people have done studies showing that rooms that are painted yellow, people are happier in. So I just don't understand why everywhere's grey. And if they put art on the walls, not climate change art, not banners that said, solve the climate crisis, if they just put art, real art on the walls, then it would just improve the situation and just make the atmosphere better and make people just feel differently about what's going on here, because it's a very soulless, negative vibe, and it shouldn't be, because we have the potential here to make a really beautiful world if we do it properly, and so we should convey that in the convention centre.
It's really interesting you say that, because I know I'm chatting to my colleagues, and this is the first UN conference I've been to. I think it's the second you've been to, Jeff. And I think we've found it similarly kind of surreal. You walk in and we're broadcasting from the NGO exhibition centre. It kind of feels like a trade fair, and as you say, it's grey. And it was it really struck me that after coming here, reading your post about the difference that it would make. And another kind of high-impact blog post that you wrote was a letter to the UK head negotiator just before we came here, which got a lot of attention on social network sites like Twitter, and I saw that she replied saying that the letter had actually made her cry. So it was quite an achievement, perhaps. What motivated you to write that to her?
It's just the process has changed me so much over the last 6 months, like being involved in the UN, that I thought before we came, it would just be a nice way to portray that, because when I write my blogs, I normally speak to the audience, but I wanted to speak to Jan, the UK's lead negotiator, directly, because I've met her over the time, and especially quite often when we meet at the UN, I'm really frustrated. The UN frustrates a lot of people, especially young people, and we get frustrated and angry, and I wanted to know that that's not what I'm like normally, that outside the UN I'm happy and enthusiastic and can see how amazing things could be, and I just really wanted her to know that, because I knew that when I met her here that probably I would be frustrated, and I just wanted to see a different side of me. And also just to remind her, I use the line a lot, I used it in Bonn and I used it in the letter, that what she's negotiating isn't just text, because they look at the text on the page. I think it can become a very inhuman thing to them. It's just text and they just have to get a decision. But I say to her that it's not a line of text. Every line of text that they're looking at is actually a moment in my future that will change because of the decision they make in the room. And so just to remind them of that, put some humanity back into what is a grey and soulless process.
And have you found the delegates responsive? Thinking specifically about the UK delegation in your case, obviously.
Yeah. I think at first they were a bit confused. When we were in Bonn, everyone was like, so you're stalking them? Or you're jumping out from behind pot plants? And no, we're not doing that. But I think they have appreciated not having to talk to us always as NGOs or as lobbyists, more as real people. And the team have definitely got some good interactions that way. As real people, that's what the beauty of this project is. We can be real people in the negotiators. We're not representing an organisation. We're not representing a policy stand. We're representing ourselves, our emotions, and how we feel. And the negotiators definitely respond to that. It's really amazing to see how they respond to that.
It's really interesting. I've got Jeff Allen with me here, who's my colleague, and he has been monitoring Twitter and also some of the social networking sites. Jeff, what have you come up with?
Yeah, I'm looking at an article that's been talked about a lot on Twitter. I'm following the OneClimate chatter as well, and it's an article about what the UK is doing here in Copenhagen. And apparently, according to a plan that the UK put on the table yesterday, there would be a severe overlap between climate funding and healthcare funding. And so the idea here is that a lot of the money that the British government has offered as development assistance to countries abroad to help them with their healthcare systems and to help their people directly is now the money that they may use to fund this climate plan. So this is something that's been brought up a lot: is will this really be new money, or are we just taking from one thing from one problem to solve another? How do you feel that the British government is doing on this issue?
I think that the British government are okay. Lots of people in the UK really don't like Gordon Brown, but I believe that he wants to, but I do think that they're trying to fiddle the numbers, that everybody seems to be always trying to fiddle the numbers, and it's such a huge issue because we promised one thing and you can't go back on that promise. So the healthcare, overseas development assistant, we have to give that, and then we have to decide now to give more. So if that money is coming from somewhere else, then that's not good enough. We have to find money, and we have to find it now. And it's not difficult to find the money because they found 700 billion overnight to bail out the banks. They found enough money to finance the Iraq war. So they can find money if they need to, and they don't have to take it from other places. So that's always a message we give to the UK government, to any government that's talking about climate finance. We know you can do it. We've seen you do it before, so do it now. With climate, it's really important.
And you're talking there about you feel that Gordon Brown does want to do something. Do you get the same kind of vibe from the delegates here? Do you manage to strike up any kind of emotional connection with the negotiators?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the UK negotiating team, you can and they've told us, they're like, we believe in it, we want to do it, we just believe in this process. And then sometimes we'll come back and be like, oh, we don't really believe in the process, and it's like, they believe this is the way to get it done. I do believe that, yeah, definitely. And I believe that a lot of them do care. It's just, they think they're stuck with a reality, the political reality, and we like to politely inform them that, screw the political reality, we're creating a new reality that will have to happen.